The single most important thing you're going to do is build a team, and that means hiring people. My neighbor across the street tells me he just sold his business for like $300 million. So can we get lunch? I had an 8-figure bank account in cash. Do you think I can afford a Lambo? How many times did I come home and just lay at the ceiling, lay and look at the ceiling and then wake up and do it again the next day?
Welcome to Behind the Rise podcast, hosted by the Perrina Brothers. My name is Angelo, and I'm joined by my brothers and business partners, Lucho and Valentino. On this show, we will speak to successful local, national, and global entrepreneurs, as well as discuss lessons we've learned in our 15-year career building a 9-figure organization. We're in the middle of our journey now and want to share with you all the wins, losses, and lessons learned behind the rise. All right, everybody, today we have a very, very special episode with one of my good friends and mentors, Eric Spofford.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to your beautiful house.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to Miami.
Yeah, great, fresher breath there again out of us.
It's a lot different than Middleton, Massachusetts.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot different than Windham, New Hampshire, too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things that we connected on. Like, you're from the Northeast.
Yeah, grew up in Salem, New Hampshire, just north of Boston.
Yep. So let's get right into it. So let's go to how you, where you grew up, like how you were as a kid, as a student, like kind of through your school.
I was a badass kid. I was a terrible student. I don't know why. I really still haven't figured out the root cause of this, but I grew up and like my idols were gangsters, and I just wanted to be like Tupac or, the Goodfellas or, these are the things that I loved as a child. Yeah. And so I got in trouble very young, started doing and selling drugs at a very early age, got caught selling weed in the 5th grade. Notable moment, yeah. Yeah, I was 10. My parents had gotten divorced, and the bank had like foreclosed on our home, and my dad had moved out and rented a room at his buddy's house, and we moved into an apartment, and like, you guys remember, you're about my age, right? Yeah. And you remember back in the day, they had Jinko jeans?
Oh, the big Jinko.
Yeah. Nobody would buy me this is a real story. Nobody would buy me the fucking Jinko jeans. Yeah. So I was like, all right. I copped a quarter pound off the 17-year-old weed dealer and started fucking slanging nickels and dimes in the elementary school and got pinched. And I remember the kid that routed Garrett Pelletier. I still fucking hate him. He routed me out. Nah, he was, it was a lot of pressure to put on a 10-year-old kid. He got caught and turned me over. But, 14 years old, buddy comes over, breaks out a 40 milligram Oxycontin on the coffee table, sniff half of it, 1999, and get high on opiates for the first time, and I blink, and 6 months later, I'm 15, I've dropped out of high school, and I'm addicted to heroin. And that's how it went. And so 15 to almost 22 years old, about 7 years of IV drug use, shooting heroin, shooting coke, eating Xanax, slugging vodka, telling people I'm doing great, trying to stay off the dope. Just a typical fucking, New England junk box.
Yeah.
And I got in a lot of trouble, and, almost died, 5 overdoses, got my head split open by a crowbar, got stabbed, or in car accidents, got shot at, dodging bullets like fucking Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. It was crazy. And then December 6th of 2006, I was like fresh out of jail again, and desperate, dope sick, and I ended up robbing a kid in a drug deal gone bad. And I always say that, and it's like, what does that mean? It was, he had money trying to buy drugs, and I had bad intentions, and I just wanted to rob him and take his money, So it wasn't actually a drug deal gone bad. It was just a robbery. But and I robbed him with a kitchen knife, with a butcher knife, and he called the police, and I went on the run December 7th of 2006 for armed robbery, and that event became my sobriety date, and I've been consistently sober and in recovery since that day.
Wow. So that day, and then you just like went off of it.
Dude, I kicked the door. And back then, there wasn't like all these rehabs and access to treatment, and like recovery wasn't mainstream. This is 2006. This is before people are even talking about the opioid epidemic, and addiction and all this, very taboo. And yeah, I kicked the dope habit on a couch, didn't sleep, puking, pissing, shitting for almost a month. It was bad. And started walking to 12-step meetings, met a group of guys that were in recovery, saved my life. You know, they're incredibly hard on me, but loved me enough to tell me the truth and help and hold me accountable. And I was like this young punk, wild dope fiend. And yeah, that's where it started.
So just for perspective, like how much did you rob him for?
$82.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that shows like the level of like where
Desperation that I was at. And dude, I had been balling in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for a while, but you know, monkeys can't sell bananas. And the last couple of years of my addiction was just straight up pathetic, homeless, just bad. Until the point where I robbed a kid for $82.
Yeah.
You know, bought four $20 bags of heroin, the last drugs I ever used.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, you know, that goes to like things happen for you, not to you. Right?
Yeah.
So now that was part of like at the time was a very low point, but now looking back on it was a catalyst to when your next step was.
That's right.
Right. So then from that moment, after you white knuckled it, got through your situation, then you started going to rehab and rehabilitation. All that. And that must have been a big, you know, that was so important to you. It sounds like that was part of your mission moving forward in business.
Yeah, one of the pivotal things that happened at a moment in time was the group of guys that I got with were very clear on what the truth of addiction was. And they said, Eric, heroin's caused you a lot of problems, but really it was the solution to an internal problem. And now you don't have heroin anymore. So what's that mean? It leaves you with a pretty big problem. And that's where I really got introduced to my first taste of personal development, which was 12-step recovery. And I got busy kind of doing this transformational work that like, all right, now I'm just a junkie without dope.
Yeah.
Like, how do I change?
Yeah.
How do I become better? How do I have a transformational experience?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I dove into recovery and very quickly had a passionate, fiery experience. And I got very excited about it and started to really transform my life.
Okay, so how did you turn, you know, from that into like your first business? Because you were broke and dead broke at that time. Like, how did you?
I've always had a hustle. I've always been a hustler, and so you know, right immediately I got sober and started getting this job and that job, and you know, I had a background in tree removal and excavation with my dad, and so started to put together side jobs, and you know, I was buying and selling shit off of Craigslist. So it's like I'd, you know, go out and buy motorcycles and four-wheelers and cars and sell them, and you know what I mean? I just started hustling, and then, you know, my dad got involved after, you know, he saw that this was, you know, I was serious about this.
Yeah.
And he helped me also purchase the first building, which was a 3-family bank-owned foreclosed-on multifamily in Derry, New Hampshire. And that's where I started the business originally, as the first sober house.
So it was the sober house at this
Yeah.
point. So at this point, you didn't have a grand plan for the business. It was, you were...
I was cutting trees down, passionate about cutting trees down every day, working in construction, opened this little sober house as a little side gig, side project. I lived there for the first 2 years.
And you were able to, you know, generate revenue. Like there was a for-profit business then.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we didn't really make much, but yeah.
And did you see that there was like a void in the sober house business at that time?
There wasn't a sober house business. It was the first one. This is so long ago that none of the stuff, none of the infrastructure and the framework of what exists in treatment and recovery today even was around then. We were the first ones.
This
It was that early? I didn't realize that. So it was
2008.
It even existed that.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta think 2008. The Affordable Care Act doesn't even happen. Obamacare until 2012.
Wow.
Right?
I see. I just always assumed that there was like an infrastructure for, you know, sobriety, you know, before, prior.
There was some, but it was nothing what it looked like.
Well, that's when the problem actually budded too, right? Like late 90s. That's when the problem boomed. It wasn't even strong before that, right? Or am I wrong?
Late 90s, Oxycontin is introduced as a non-addictive painkiller, right?
Yeah.
Really pharmaceutical grade heroin. And then, you know, it probably starts to become mainstream in 2012. Like really mainstream. And the reason is because fentanyl shows up.
Right.
All of a sudden you can't ignore it anymore because young people are just dying left and right. Yeah. And now people are like, their eyes are wide open and going, okay, what the fuck's going on, you know? Yeah. And so that's when it gets to about 2012, it starts to become an outrage of controversy. It starts to become a popular topic of discussion. The 2016, but really 2015 campaigns for the 2016 election are run on Yeah. A lot of addiction stuff, right? It was the number one. Yeah. In that election cycle, it was actually the number one concern of voters.
Was it really?
Yeah. There's more than economy, jobs,
There's not one person that doesn't know somebody that's been affected by that pandemic, right?
I remember when you were in high school, there's people dying left and right.
Yeah.
Especially it's like happens in like the suburb towns too.
Yeah.
Like when there's like not much to do and their kids are just home and their parents, even sometimes like parents' money, right? And all of a sudden they dabble with weed and all of a sudden they move over to Oxycontin or something, then boom, it's like our town's a mess.
Yeah, we grew up in Reddit, which is a far.
Yeah.
No, we're in the same age, so like that's when it like really started coming.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
All right, so now you had this overhaul, the first overhaul, and then how did you parlay that into the next thing? Like, how did it go from there?
There was such a demand for that sober house of people trying to get in. I was like, well, fuck, I need a second one.
Yeah.
And then I got a second one, and then I started to learn about treatment and recovery and the treatment business, and I started to get a vision for like, wow, this could actually be a bigger business.
Yeah.
And then I opened it outpatient, and then I opened the next thing and the next thing, and just started building.
And how does like the outpatient work, or even the sober houses? Like, is it state funded by any means? Like, how does it, or does it come out of pocket? How does it?
The sober houses, I mean, we charge like $150 a week.
Got it.
And so guys would have jobs and go to work and make a paycheck and pay their rent and whatnot. The outpatient was treatment, and so it's a healthcare service, so it's covered by third-party payers, insurance companies, health insurance. Yeah.
I see. So you're figuring out, okay, there's a big industry here. If I can help people get sober, and then you can then house them in the sober house too. So it's like a vertical integration type thing.
Yeah. And then I went fully vertical. And so what happened was in 2012, fentanyl shows up. I had a nice little business and, doing sober living with outpatient for young guys, 18 to 30-year-old men, called the Granite House. And then fentanyl shows up and all my friends start to die.
Really?
Yeah. Everyone I ever got high with is dead. And,
Wow.
People say, oh, if you use drugs with them, they're not your real friends. Fuck you. I love these kids.
Right.
And they're all gone. And I got fired up and said, well, somebody's got to do something. And so that's when I went and built bigger treatment centers and higher levels of care. And so I took off to do that in around that time. And by 2015, 2016, I had built a monster. And it was like one of the largest on the East Coast and the largest in the Northeast.
Wow. And you were focused in pretty much in Hampshire, right?
It was all in New Hampshire, but we took patients from
everywhere.
From everywhere, yeah. Yeah, mostly Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New England, but then ones and twos from all over the place.
Yeah.
Did you have any mentors along that way?
Tons.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah. One of the things that I attribute a lot of my success to is my ability to learn and consistently be a student of the game. And so, and this is before Instagram. This is before you could buy mentorship and coaching. This is way before. I mean, I started the business before MySpace was like a thing. You know what I mean? I remember being in the sober house and one of the sober house clients showing me MySpace and like showing me, all right, now you got to pick some top friends and
Tom. Right?
Yeah. Get Tom off the top friends and, and so, what I did was I just went out and asked people for help and asked people for time. And, these were mostly older guys that had made it already, that, were kind of in the end of their career, had made a lot of money, and I built some amazing relationships.
I feel like that's important too. Like usually when people you meet who end up like making it, their purpose is to like then help younger people at that same fire. Like they probably saw something in you. You're like, you know what? Let me help this guy.
That was exactly it.
Yeah, I see that happening.
Yeah, I mean that's what's happening with him right now. All right, and one of the reasons, like when I was looking for a mentor, I saw you and I saw how you spoke real business. Not just fluff. It's like true business. I'm like, all right, this guy's a true operator.
Yeah.
And now, with your coaching program, that I'm in and that you're doing right now, I can't tell you the amount of, like, I've been in other ones before, like the amount of like value and actual tactical business stuff, which is why I'm so excited to talk to you, so other people can see some of this here today.
Yeah.
It's, truly been a blessing, but that's exactly, he's following the same exact path.
That's honestly why I do it, because you get to a certain point and I see their perspective now. It's like, I have plenty of dough. I got everything I ever wanted. I got the fancy car, the fancy house, the boat, the plane.
Right.
Like,
What else is
what, you know what I mean? Like, and so like when I look at my week, dude, I'm working harder than I've ever worked. You know what I mean? Like in real businesses, like I'm not like a full-time coach. I do that like for fun on the side.
which is ridiculous because like
That's a lot of, you know,
if I message you at like midnight, you're responding like right away, and then like you're at the gym at like 5 or 6 in the morning,
Yeah.
and you got a motor.
Yeah.
And it hasn't when wanted growing it before. It's like if there was any, I don't know. It's
Yeah, no doubt. And but it brings me the most like joy and happiness to like see other people and see them win and like be there for them when they take the L, and like I've had a lot of fun with it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's circle back a little bit to like, you know, how you got to this point now. So like your business is being successful. And I know, you know, one of the things that we've talked about is like, you know, when you realize that you have like an asset that you can sell.
2015, 16, I take a ton of risk. That's one thing I don't talk about a lot is like that I've signed deals that I was like, this is full send. This is either ends up in bankruptcy and I'm fucking going to the poorhouse, or like it's gonna bring me to that next level. But like one of the fucking two is about to happen. You know what I mean? Like there's no middle ground here. Like this is gonna. And so I made a lot of those decisions. I put my nuts on the table over and over and over again. I put it all at risk over and over and over again. It's like I would put my chips on the table, win the round, and be like, do it again, do it again. And then in 2017, my neighbor, you know what's crazy? I tell this story, but I don't tell the back. In 2007, 8, around that time, they're building the Iron Gate neighborhood in Windham. Anyone from the local area will know this neighborhood. And I'm driving a $400 car, a 1988 Volvo, piece of shit, 4-cylinder, you know, just piece of junk, smoking cigarettes still with a large Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee. And I'm in that neighborhood, leaning on the hood of my car going someday. I live in a $550 apartment in the Tree Streets in Nashua. For anyone that's not familiar, you know, any neighborhood named the Tree Streets is not a good one. And dude, in maybe 2014, 2015, I don't remember now. What year is it? 2023? Probably in 2015. I buy the dopest house in that neighborhood. But I extend myself. Like I'm like stretching to get in there, right? Yeah. But I'm like obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And dude, it's by like constantly putting myself in this position, putting the chips all back in over and over again. This was one of them that I was like, all right, I'm going to get into this house and then I have to figure it out.
Right.
I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to put all my chips in on this other thing and then I have to figure it out. Gun to my head. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I meet my neighbors. And then 2 years later, my neighbor across the street tells me he just sold his business for like $300 million.
Wow.
And I was like, really? So can we get lunch? And yeah. I was like, how's that work? And so he introduced, I learned a little bit from him. He introduces me to some people. I have a series of meetings. I meet an investment banker that I like. His name's Michael. And Michael comes in and looks at my business and we sit down and he has the financials in front of him. He says, Eric, you know, I could sell this business for like valuation, like $50 million.
Oh shit.
I said, $50 million. What are you talking about? Yeah. What are we talking about right now? You know what I mean? And I had no idea. I didn't know what EBITDA was. I didn't know the difference between cash and accrual accounting.
Yeah.
It was the best thing in a business sense that ever happened to me because the next series of years, I have the biggest business education that I possibly could have had. Like, and that's why this coaching thing is so funny because so many people get to version 2017, Eric, skill set, knowledge, capabilities, connections, etc. Very few get to 2021 with a 9-figure exit because they don't understand everything that happens between here and there, right? It's a lot.
Sure.
And so I just go deep. And again, back to like my obsessive nature. A lot of you message me at midnight, bro. I'm probably reading, watching a video, like I'm learning. That's typical. I haven't watched a television in fucking years. And so I'm just like, and so I obsessively start learning about private equity, mergers and acquisitions, you know, how to sell a business, just everything that you could possibly learn about it. I find a bunch of mentors and people that have sold businesses, and like, I now know exactly what the profile of the people that I want to learn from to bring me to this next level look like, right? Like, I've identified a target. If I can identify a target, it's a lot easier to hit a target you can see than one you can't.
Right.
And I start the other skill set that people really need to double in is like, I'll take the information. A lot of people just get the information and they get paralyzed. I'll take the information and then implement. You guys are good at that.
Yeah.
I fucking tell this guy one thing and fucking by Wednesday it's done, you know? And I start to do that in my business, and I start to professionalize it, and I start to scale it, and I start to, you know, and then eventually I lead 6 transactions. This is interesting. In 2019, and this was actually, I got more education from this than anything else. I had 2 failed processes. I went to market one time, got a host of buyers at that $50 million valuation, had one deal queued up for 80% for $40 million. That deal blew up in my face. Wow. That was the crazy story with the vice president of America and, you know, all this crazy shit. And then I had a backup buyer, and that deal ended up blowing up in my face also.
Wow.
And so in the summer of 2019, I thought I was going to be, you know, with $40 million in the bank. And what I really had was I owed a couple $1 million of fees and a couple $1 million to the IRS, and my business like was in the dumps.
Wow.
And building out of that taught me an immense amount. And so then I went to lead 3 successful minority transactions where I sold on 3 occasions, 10%, and then 18.75% at a growing valuation of 40, 50, and then $80 million. I ended up taking, I think, $24 million off the table. And that was helpful too, because the minority partner that I had was the guy who sold his business for $300 million. My neighbor, who became my friend and started a family office. And then I partnered with him and his like very professional team in his family office. And the couple of years that we were partnered, it elevated my skill set and my knowledge even more. Because now we're partnered, and I'm just a sponge on you every day, fucking taking everything that I can get from them. And then it was in partnership with them, I still owned majority of the business, that I sold it, and we had a successful transaction on December 21st of 2021.
And then that was at a much higher valuation then.
115 million.
Is that the part that you got into real estate, or were you doing?
I've been in real estate the whole time. I mean, to me, the real estate's just so like, yeah, we do real estate. You know what I mean? Like, of course, right? So during this entire course, one, I'm buying all the real estate for the business, I'm developing it, and then I'm leasing it back to the business. Then investing in multifamily, and then I'm also a developer, and so I've built, you know, a lot of projects, single family homes, subdivisions, condo projects, multifamily, right on like Mount. Yeah.
So first and foremost, you're focusing on real estate for your business, right? The maximize.
Well, the first real estate deal I do was that first sober house.
Yeah.
In 2008, and then I buy the second one, and then I buy the next one, and the next one. And
That was what honestly said we met.
Yeah.
You've learned very for us.
100%.
How to integrate real estate correctly into your business, and how that attributes to like the long play, you know, the sum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things, like, so even in our case, like we're in the restaurant business, right? Like, so it works similar to that, right? So we can buy the properties, lease it back to the company.
Yeah, of course.
But that's a huge suck on cash flow, on cash, right?
Yep.
To be able to go and grow your business sustainably, purchase the building, and then also have enough money to, you know, build out the facilities and all that stuff. So like, any tips or ways or tricks on how to scale that, the real estate at the same time as the business? Or is it just use your cash flow, use your cash and divvy it up properly?
Not a popular piece of advice
Yeah.
that I give people, but it's one I actually did.
Yeah.
The business is going to produce cash.
Yeah.
You got a couple options. Lifestyle or put it back in. And so the reason that I was building and houses and flipping houses and building, like I for the majority of my career, I made my money through the cash flow of the rent and also hustling on the side in real estate to let the Granite Recovery Centers, my operating company, accrue cash to invest back in or distribute out to buy more real estate.
I see.
And although I bought that house, so that doesn't sound great, I really, considering the amount of money that started going around for a long time, lived below my means.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a 8-figure bank account in cash with owned real estate, and I built that company entirely debt-free.
Wow.
And sold it debt-free. And I remember being like, do you think I can afford a Lambo? Yeah. Like my first Lambo was like $200,000. You know what I mean? I got like 20 million in the bank, and I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? And so I was really like, I lived considerably below my means, and for a long time just let the cash go back in and bought the next piece of property and then funded the operation and, you know.
So that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, like, you know, if you're in it and you've been in a while, like, you understand that. The people who aren't in or who want to become entrepreneurs, you know, need to understand is that you need to make personal sacrifices, and it's not always how it looks from the outside. They see you as like the CEO with like a nice house and all this stuff, but they don't realize the amount of risk, and which is
what people don't understand. That they look at you and they count, you know, they count your money for you, and you're like, you dumb fuck, you don't have a cent, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know.
I have a quick question too. What made your business so attractive for a buyer? Like, was there anything specific that they looked for? Or like,
it was a ton of, yes. It was in that time period, I studied what do buyers want? What does it look like to professionalize a business? I took that business from me having every direct report. Nothing happened without me. If I took a vacation and went to the beach in Aruba, I'm fucking on my phone answering questions and giving directives all day long from the beach. My kid running around, you know what I mean? To, by the time I sold that company, I wasn't the CEO. I didn't make a single operative decision in the day-to-day or even get briefed on the day-to-day for 10 months. I didn't even go to the business. Wow. I went to 10 board meetings. Every once in a while I call and be like, how's it going? I had a dashboard of KPIs and measurements, and I could see the performance of the business, and luckily it was doing well. So I never felt the need to like reassert myself and put myself back in. But that business being able to operate totally without me, when I got to the last final transaction and process where we went out to a buyer list of about 125 people and then shrunk it all the way down, I went to one management meeting with each one of the private equity groups, and it was like a meet and greet. Like, they didn't even care. Like, I'd been out and so removed. They were like, yeah, you're kind of irrelevant. We just want to talk to your team. Nice to meet you. You know, like, yeah. I was like, hey, guys. I showed up, like, for coffee. How we doing? You know? And they're like, yeah, nice to meet you. Like, all right. Like, it was kind of like checking a box thing.
Don't have like it's all for us. So like a week and a half. Like, I was sick for a week, and then they're eating here, and then I was separate from the business, and running. I had nothing insured.
Yeah, the first.
And
which allows you to focus on growth and work on the business, not in the business.
Exactly. You know, almost something that you taught me, you know, a couple months ago was that exact story you told me. And I came back home. I couldn't have gone home fast enough. Like, when I came back on the jet, literally, I went from there, like, right to that. Like, listen, I got to get this out of my head before, like, I forget it. Like, I got to get it on the table. And then, like, that was a huge unlock for us.
Yeah.
Like, because we've been bred so differently. Like, we grew up in our father had a construction business. When I heard the story from you, it's like very similar. So I worked for my dad growing up.
Yep.
But my dad was all like, hit his hands. If you're not doing the work yourself, you're doing something wrong.
I saw a picture of you guys together.
Yeah.
Guy, he's got to be proud of you guys.
Yeah. And that's cool. He taught us everything about business, like, Wonder Bread. But he's an old school guy. He had the old school mentality. So for us, it's like, we've always had that, like, ingrained in us. But now that it's like, okay, in order to really go to the next level, you have to delegate. You have to have KPIs. You have to have SOPs for everything. And you have to become the CEO, not a hustler anymore. You know, like, we hustle to get to this point. But in order for us to go to the next level, that's the step that we need to take, you know? In the short period of time, we've been able to do that, and that's like you say, like we've been here all week and like everything's going smooth.
Yeah.
You know?
Kind of a weird thing for your ego too. Like, fuck, I feel irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, now, I mean, now the phase is, well, what does the business need you for? Well, it needs you to grow.
Right.
And then the next phase is, how do you build a business that fucking grows without you?
Right. That's what we.
Now you're hands off and top line's growing, bottom line's growing.
Right.
And you're like, damn. Dang. You know?
How did you find the A players along the way? Because that's a huge part of the thing. Like,
Listen, people hate this. I fucking have some amazing recruiters, and I spent the money on it. And because the most important, like the single, especially for the stage of development of a growing business, the single most important thing you're going to do is build a team. And that means hiring people. Like it's businesses are people. In order to be good at business, you have to be good at people. And so I spent the money on recruiters and I found the best of the best. And they did broad, extensive searches. And, I paid the X percentage of the salary and, pinched my butthole and wrote the check. It's crazy. But they got me a COO that eventually took over as CEO and all the subsequent other players in the leadership team that allowed me to step out.
Right.
And it's an investment, but you have to look at that as an investment in the business because if I don't do those things, a $115 million exit never happens.
Right.
Because here's the thing that any investor is going to look at the team. They really invest in teams, And so by building that team and that team composition of A players, it's enormous. And then the other thing was very solid recruitment. We talked about this, policies. Like I looked at a ton of candidates for each and every single open important position. And almost all of them I would get excited about. A lot of entrepreneurship at a certain point you have to grow into is discipline, emotional discipline, right? Like I think for a lot of us, maybe some are different, but for me and a lot of the people that I've worked with and coached and mentored over the years, we get very excited. We get very, you know what I mean? And that was a difficult part of that. Was like every person I met, I was like, this fucking guy's great. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he did this and he did that, and like, blah, blah, blah. And, luckily I had great advisors around me at the time, which was my partner that had sold the business and started a family office. They're like, let's interview the next one. Let's interview the next one. Let's interview the next one. And so we got in front of, like, you shouldn't be looking to find one amazing candidate. You should be making a decision between a fucking ton of amazing candidates. And if you've run a good recruitment process, making that decision on who the right one should be difficult because you're so impressed by everyone who's in the final stage,
Right.
And you're like, fuck, and so that, I think is one of the most important things in building and professionalizing a business. And like, that's that 2017 to 2021. What's the difference? All the people, this is a lot of the reason why people will never make that crosswalk. In 2017, I'm friends with all the employees. The employees took me from here to here. We're going to children's birthday parties. We're doing backyard barbecues and pool days. We're social events. We're a fucking mom and pop's family atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
What a lot of people struggle with, and they give up the next phase because they don't want to lose that. Because in a lot of ways, when we say, we professionalize a business, it's always in this like positive, like, we're professionalizing the business. Yeah. That's not professional. When you professionalize it, that changes. So it has to. It has to, because there's a big difference between mom and pops and professionalized. And so all the people change. Some are still in the business, but as CEOs, owners, and entrepreneurs, we have a bus. That's our business. There's a bunch of seats. It's our responsibility to, at all times, to ensure that we have the right people on the bus, and when they're on the bus, they're sitting in the right seat. And so as part of professionalizing that business is I might have had some people that were sitting behind me in the front row while I'm driving the bus. And in order to take it from here to here, I got to have hard conversations and say, hey, bud, you're like more of a middle of the bus guy for where we're going. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to need to sit in the back a little bit, make a little room here. You know, we got some new people coming on the bus. Tough conversations. Not all of them go well.
Yeah.
You know, and those changes are unfortunate. They're emotional, but they're necessary. Yeah. And it holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a huge for that. I mean,
Because you love these people. You love them. I'm a loyal guy. You know what I mean? I'm a street guy. And like, you fucking ground it out with me for years. But am I going to sacrifice the continued growth of this business based off of my loyalty for you? You know what I mean? And can I successfully get you to understand that like, you're not always going to be the number 2, the number 5, or the number 8 as this company grows? Like, it's okay that you're now number 21. Right. You know what I mean? In this fucking org chart, this pecking order. Like, and so it's a challenge of ego and pride, and situations that hopefully work out if handled tactfully and carefully, but have a high propensity to go sideways.
Yeah. That's such an important lesson.
one thing we always constant, like, never got aware of early on in that. At the end of the day, like, when it's the net of the conversations, those people are going to go, fuck, blood is. So I'm like,
Yeah, they go get another job. Yeah.
well, and when that, like, where are you going to do? Where are you
Yeah.
You have to do what's best for the company all the time.
It's the common greater good of the business and all people as the unified collective is our greatest responsibility over our dedication to any single one team member.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If it's a concept like you work for the business, like even you work for your business. Like your business is the baby, that's the employer of yourself.
Yes.
I mean,
How important is it to, like, if you're starting a company, right, or you're trying to get into business, how important is it for you to know what your end game is, like, when you're starting, and to, like, reverse, like, engineer kind of what your goal is? Like, if you're going to get into a company, is it just a cash flow, you know, and live and have a high-paying job? Is it to have, like, an exit eventually? Like, is it important at the very beginning, or, like, in the first couple of years to really lay out what your goal is and reverse engineer, like, how to get there?
I think, I mean, some entrepreneurs, I think first-time entrepreneurs figure that out eventually.
Yeah.
Like, I started a business from scratch right now, and I know what the end goal is, and I know all the mile markers to get there, and I know exactly what this needs to look like by when in order to achieve that target. Yeah. It's my second time doing it, right? I think what I see in a lot of people is they grow businesses, and at a certain point, they kind of wake up a little bit, and they go, okay. At that point, it's important to step back and define, what are we doing, right? Like, you got this business, you can run it for cash flow. It's a good lifestyle business.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, you want to sell it, you want to professionalize it. Right. And so I do think that creating a vision for the business and then reverse engineering every step backwards at a certain point is important. I just don't think there might be entrepreneurs or business owners watching this right now. They're like, fuck, I've never done that. Like, you know, I've owned this business, and like, that's okay. I think there's a pivotal moment where we wake up to it.
Right.
And it's like it's also probably coupled with, if you're thinking about that, you've probably hit some resistance in a plateau or a bottleneck.
Yeah.
And that's the right time to figure it out.
Yeah.
when did you know that it was time to sell? Was it like a moment for you where you were like, I think it's time to get all the chips off the table?
March 2021.
What was the like moment? Or did you just know, like, I mean, it's time to sell, get the certain
I looked around the world and said, the bottom is going to drop out of this. The economy is going to fucking tank. We are at the end of the cycle. I swear to fucking God, I have witnesses. I probably have video footage of this and documentation. And I said, I called Lori, my right hand, randomly on like a random weekday morning. And I said, we're selling this business. She was like, what? Like, we had just come out of talks of like national growth plan, like we're going to fucking take over. And I just looked around and I was like, yeah, we're playing musical chairs and the music's about to stop.
Wow.
I'm out. And I retained an investment banker that week. The other thing that I've always done well at is like, I make a decision and go and execute right away.
I think a lot of like business owners are very decisive. Like once you
Bing, bang. Yeah, that's how it went. It's like bing, bang. And people are like, whoa, wait, bang. Yeah, and that's when we took the business to market, and 10 months later we sold it. And what's crazy is I sell the business, and then, word gets out to the investment bankers and the attorneys and all this stuff. And so you got every jerk off from, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Merrill Lynch, all these, wealth management, private wealth banks and all this stuff. I have them marching into my office with these big presentations. Eric, you got to put your money to work. We got to get it in the stock market. We got to get it in this fund and that fund, and we got to put it here. We got to put it there, and blah, blah, blah. I tell every single one of them, I'm staying in cash. Are you fucking crazy? They were literally like mind blown. Like, what do you mean you're staying in cash? It was, where one, you have to recognize where am I aligned and where am I not aligned, right? I love creating alignment because I'll trust you. But if we're aligned, right, and I know that our interests are the same, right, then there's a deeper level of trust because you're not fighting against human nature to fucking, right? Exactly. The human nature is, if you're my broker, if you're my banking guy, and you make money off of my fees, exactly, at what point are you thinking about your family, your paycheck, and your Disney World vacation over my best interests, right? And so I said, blah, blah, blah. 6 months later, probably... I call, this is halfway through 2022. The world is fucking not doing so hot. I called them all back. I said, hey, you guys came in, and they had we're going to put your money here, we're going to put your money there, we're going to put your money, all these different things. I said, I've done a little bit of my homework. I don't know if my numbers are actually right, but I looked at the wealth plan you gave me 6 months ago, and if I deployed on that day, I'd be down like 30, 40, 50% right now. Like, what are we talking about? Right. Sit here and you'd probably be telling me things like, you can't time the market, Eric. It's going to work out over time. Just hang tight, be patient, blah, blah, blah. You'd be having to settle me down and talk me off the fucking ledge today, huh? Exactly. They're like, you're an asshole.
You were around in 2008, 2009. You know the importance of cash, right?
So I built the business. I started in 2008 when banking wasn't available and debt wasn't around, and people... It's it's an incredible advantage for all of us that understand that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's why I built a business with no debt.
Yeah, exactly. And often has they say, oh, well, your cash isn't growing in the account. I get that, but when shit like this happens and nobody has access to capital, and you are the motherfucker with sitting on a bag of cash, you can now play the game when everyone else is stuck.
Exactly. When that opportunity hits you at that time, right? And you have the cash to do it. And they don't.
Exactly.
Then let's talk about that then. You know what I mean?
Then you see how valuable cash is. All right, so I know I could talk to you literally about this shit.
So could I.
And I know we're going to have a great weekend in your mastermind event.
Hell yeah.
Super excited about that. The Inner Circle, that's your mastermind.
Yep.
Right? Is that what you call it? It's a group. It's a business group, right?
It's business and entrepreneurial coaching.
Yeah. And I've gotten so much out of it. If you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or anybody who wants to do better in life or improve yourself, I cannot stress it enough how much value I've gotten out of it in a short period of time. I mean, it's been a couple months I've been in with you, and I feel like we've grown. Yeah, if we had met,
it's powerful.
If we had this 10 years ago, we would probably be in the house next door.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity that we've had, that you've given us to this point. Last question we have, that we ask everybody at the end: what is the best advice you can give to somebody? Best piece of advice you received that you'd like to pass on to people who either are in business now or want to start their own business? What's something that you could pass on that might unlock something for them moving forward?
Best piece of advice, God, that, gonna narrow that down. The stuff that worked for me was just tenacity and the ability to work through all conditions, adversity, solve problems on good days, on bad days, work ethic, leave it all in the field every day. This is not easy. And it's not supposed to be easy. And that's why it's the few that will actually experience the glory of entrepreneurship, and creating wealth and stacking wins like that. And so just hard work, optimism, developing the ability to learn, developing the ability to master a skill set on demand when it becomes necessary, and just never giving up.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that, like, dude, one of the things we don't talk about enough is, like, in the 13 years of building that business, how many times did I come home after getting my teeth kicked in, dude, and just lay at the ceiling, look at the ceiling and be like, fuck. And then wake up and do it again the next day.
Yeah.
And if you had seen me the next morning, you would have never known. Hey, how we doing? Good morning. Hi. Everything's great. Back to work.
But we talk about salary, that is not fucking easy.
No, you build that callus over time.
Yeah, you do.
It's not easy at the beginning, but you learn to.
You do.
Yeah.
And you have to push through it. Too many people give up in the early stages of that before they build the callus. Exactly. Now it's like I take a punch in the mouth like a fucking championship fighter. I'm like, ding, that's all you got, bitch. Like, let's fucking go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so follow Eric on Instagram, right? Eric Spofford is in.
At Eric Spofford, yeah.
At Eric Spofford. Reach out to him directly about Inner Circle. You will not regret it, I promise.
I shoot that.
Thank you for having us up.
Absolutely.